The strangest thing about Mickey Mouse cartoons has to be the fact that there are simultaneously anthropomorphic and regular animals, and that the regular animals are treated as pets and not people. Is it not odd that Goofy can treat Pluto like a pet dog, despite the fact that he's practically the same thing? I've heard different theories on the matter, but one I don't hear brought up very much is a theory presented in a creepypasta of all things. This creepypasta specifically is called Mickey's Best Friend. In this video, I'll be explaining the entire story and the theory it presents. Without further ado, check out my social media link below, and I hope you enjoy this video. Also, like I said in the last video, I got a suggestion email, gearvidsuggestions@gmail.com. I'm gonna promote it in at least the next few videos, okay? Because I need to make sure enough people see it, and I don't know what videos are gonna do well and what videos are just gonna do regular, so you never know, okay? So I'm letting everybody know. It's probably gonna be in the description. Any type of creepy topic, it doesn't matter if it's real life, it doesn't matter if it's a book, it doesn't matter if it's a movie, anything, send it to me on that email and I might make a video about it. Alright, so editing me here. Yes, I know the suggestion email doesn't work. I don't know why this has happened to me, okay? But they locked the account a few days before I even made my last video, and I didn't know. So, anyway, I submitted an appeal for it. But if you want to send any suggestions, I guess just send it to my business email. I didn't want this to happen. That's why I made the suggestion email. But for now, temporarily, if you have something, send it to my business email, because I'm getting way more on top of, dropping stuff, so I need as many suggestions as possible. Alright, thanks for watching the video. Let's get back to the regularly scheduled programming here. Okay, so I've been watching a lot of Wendigoon, as most of us have been last year, and there have been a couple other creators as well that have been making more videos about literature, whether that be manga, whether that be comics, whether that be books, non-fictional and fictional, and I've been wanting to get into that as well. So I'm starting off with a creepypasta of all things, which for some can barely be considered as literature, but anyway, expect more videos like this. So I don't know how great this video is going to be, but yeah, definitely going to be doing more literature this year. Alright, let's get into this. Like with any video though, I'll give you some quick context about the media I'll be talking about first. Mickey Mouse was originally created around 1927 or 1928 as a replacement for Oswald the Rabbit, a character I'm sure some of you are familiar with as he's been in the Epic Mickey video game series. Interestingly enough, Oswald was also supposed to be in Kingdom Hearts 3, but when the creator, Tetsuya Nomura, requested to use him in the game, Disney replied that it wouldn't be possible as he was quote-unquote too hard to use, whatever that means. Oswald was also owned by Universal Studios during the time of Mickey's creation, despite being created by Disney, which obviously caused some problems, thus leading to the replacement. Mickey would first be seen in a 1928 cartoon called Plane Crazy, which didn't have the best reception. The first screening Mickey is widely known for, however, is Steamboat Willie, which, despite the extremely popular clip of Mickey whistling while captaining the boat, he actually wasn't the captain in this episode, believe it or not. Pete, his current longtime rival, was. In this cartoon, he's actually working for Pete, which is a huge difference from later cartoons where he's actively rebelling against him. The more you know, right? Regardless, this cartoon was released in November of 1928. Almost a year later, an episode called Mickey's Best Friend was allegedly released, according to a creepypasta anyway. According to the story, this episode was first spoken about on a mediocre Disney wiki page which remains unnamed. It was then archived and presumably copied over to the creepypasta wiki. Not sure why it would be specifically sent there, but I digress. So, what exactly is this episode about, and why did I want to take the time to make a full video about it? Let's get into it. The alleged episode begins with Mickey driving to work in his car before his car breaks down. Of course, this leads to him getting out to check the damage, as anyone would. When he checks for the source of the issue, he quickly realizes that this isn't a problem you can easily repair. He becomes depressed as the whole thing now seems hopeless. Luckily, someone happens to be passing by and stops to help him. The mysterious stranger is able to fix the problem, thankfully. Mickey introduces himself to the stranger, who introduces himself as Eustace. Grateful for the help, Mickey invites Eustace to ride along with him. Eustace asks where exactly Mickey was going, and Mickey lies and says he wasn't really going anywhere, choosing to skip work. This is pretty odd, but not exactly a red flag or anything. Why exactly would Mickey want a random stranger to ride in his car with him, and why would he suddenly want to skip work for him? Strange, but like I said, not exactly horrifying. They arrive at a cafe and the owner strangely shoots Mickey a nasty look before rudely asking Mickey what he wants. Clearly, something is very off here. Soon, Pete, a sheriff in this episode, comes in and confronts Mickey over his late rent. This is also strange as Mickey has never been irresponsible in this way, at least not that I can remember. Eustace, despite just meeting Mickey, decides to pay off his entire rent. Pete responds to Eustace by telling him that Mickey will only cause him trouble before leaving, and after this, Mickey hugs Eustace, thankful that he was able to get him out of that situation. Eustace is definitely way too good for Mickey, that is for certain. It's also weird that Mickey would purposefully go to a cafe and hang around in public despite the fact that none of these people like him and that he has a massive debt hanging over his head. After leaving the cafe, Mickey begins to introduce Eustace to a bunch of local residents who respond by just walking off. They don't care at all. The last resident they speak to responds by chuckling for a bit before telling Eustace that he should be careful around that mouse. This obviously confuses Eustace and he attempts to get an explanation as to what's wrong with Mickey. But somehow, just a second later, the resident has already disappeared. Very strange indeed. Almost seems like a ghost. For some reason, Mickey is still smiling after all of this, which confuses Eustace, understandably. He asks Mickey how he could possibly be smiling after being treated like that by everyone, to which Mickey replies that he's never had friends before and that Eustace is his first pal. Eustace is looking very guilty at this point. It's likely that he's hiding something from Mickey, but we don't know what just yet. It's after this that the two are shown doing a bunch of different things. Going to a theater, playing some type of game, and going to the summit of a mountain to view all of the scenery below. That is a lot to do in one day. I'm honestly impressed they were able to fit all of that in. After all of that though, Mickey takes Eustace back to his home in hopes that Eustace will stay with him. It's at this point that Eustace guiltily tells Mickey that he has to leave. Mickey immediately assumes he's being betrayed and stands there in shock. Eustace goes on to explain himself by saying that he doesn't like the town or the residents and has to go elsewhere. So he was guilty because he always knew he would leave Mickey. That makes sense. Eustace then apologizes to Mickey and gives him some encouragement before walking out of the door. As he's leaving, Mickey grabs his leg and begins to plead desperately for him not to leave. Eustace shakes his head and continues to make his leave. Mickey can't have that though. After all, this is his only friend. He notices a rock on the ground and realizes what he has to do. Immediately, he lunges at Eustace from behind and knocks him out cold with it. Obviously, things can only go well at this point. I wonder how he'll make sure that Eustace stays his friend forever. It's not like Eustace is staying willingly. The next scene begins by showing Mickey walking downstairs to the basement. Eustace is found tied to an operating table while still unconscious. Despite the fact that Eustace can't hear him, Mickey begins crying and apologizing to him, telling him that it just has to be this way, that he can't be alone anymore. He grabs a knife and begins to do something to Eustace off screen. Somehow, Eustace sleeps through all of this. I guess we're supposed to assume that he was sedated. Eustace finally comes to and it's revealed that he's no longer anthropomorphic, but a regular dog. Obviously, he begins to freak out and realizes that he can't speak but can only bark. After he sets eyes on Mickey though, he's immediately relieved for some reason. He then jumps on Mickey and begins to lick him. I'm sure you can tell where this is going. Mickey tells Eustace that nobody will ever know about this and that Eustace will be known as Pluto from now on. As the camera pans out from Mickey's house, we hear the clip of the unnamed resident warning Eustace about Mickey as Sheriff Pete's laugh also plays. And that's the end of that. The page then goes on to add that this alleged episode was originally supposed to be Halloween themed. Some characters from this episode went on to be mainstays, with the cafe owner becoming Daisy, the resident warning Eustace becoming Goofy, who is purported to look very similar to Eustace, and of course Pluto would become a mainstay as well. It's also said that the alleged cartoon generated a lot of controversy. I wonder why. Because of this, Walt himself allegedly destroyed every copy in existence so that nobody would ever be able to see his failure. Apparently, the only modern connection to this episode is that Mickey refers to Pluto as his best friend and will always risk his life to save him when he runs away. There was also an alleged and unnamed website that had a ton of screenshots of the episode, but of course this website no longer exists and only one screenshot was archived, that being the title as seen before. So all of that being said, let's get back to why exactly I chose to make this video and a further analysis of what's going on here. I'm sure you can imagine a lot of people compare this story to a certain mouse.avi tale, a very popular creepypasta that I will not say the full name of for obvious reasons. The story details Mickey's descent into madness as he walks across an ever-changing and distorted landscape. In my opinion, this episode has always represented someone's descent into insanity, whether that be through a psychotic break or through a lack of mental health treatment. I could be reaching though, but I guess that would be for another video anyway. Although both alleged episodes are most definitely dark, they aren't really very similar at all. One features only Mickey, while the other features many supporting characters. One has a discernible plot, while the other is more an uncanny experience. One has dialogue and the other doesn't, save for some murmuring and blood-curdling screams. You get it. It always seemed odd to me that one got talked about so much more than the other though. I'm guessing that's just because of all the episode remakes that came out on YouTube. Someone should definitely remake Mickey's Best Friend though, that's all I'm saying. When I first read Mickey's Best Friend years ago, I remember it genuinely creeping me out, mainly because of the concept it proposes when it comes to the fate of Eustace. The fact that Mickey changed a regular anthropomorphic dog guy into an actual dog, changed his name and took him in as a pet forever is insane to me. That's the type of scenario horror movies are based off of. What's even more creepy to me is that Eustace likely doesn't even remember his prior life, or at least doesn't even care about it as long as he's around Mickey, as shown in the story. It's as if he was never a person at all. Furthermore, how could these other characters in this episode also become mainstays and not care at all about what happened to Eustace? There's no way Pluto doesn't look very similar to him. It also just makes you wonder exactly how any other regular animals in this series exist. Were all of them also created through some type of surgical procedure? How many of them remember their prior lives? One other theory I saw proposed that these animals were more akin to those that are mentally deficient. However, this doesn't make much sense, as if that was the case they would still be anthropomorphic. It's almost like if we had cavemen around and treated them as pets or something. Obviously, it's very unrealistic to think that this episode could have ever been conceived. Besides the fact that I don't think any company in the 1920s, bar an independent horror one, would even think to consider making something like this, it's extremely odd that not even a second of this alleged episode can be found anywhere. Even more odd when you combine it with the fact that there were allegedly a ton of screenshots of it on some unnamed website, meaning that there would be a digital copy somewhere out there. On top of these, it's very weird that nobody involved with this cartoon would have confessed that it existed or spoken about it. Regardless of all of this though, the concept it presents is still very unnerving to me. What type of procedure would render a completely cognizant and competent anthropomorphic dog person to just a regular dog? I mean, he'd have to be half the size and his proportions would be completely different, so just what can Mickey do? The other question I had while reading this was, why didn't Mickey do this to anyone else? As in the story it says, and I quote, "Mickey is in shock and assumes that it's a betrayal just like all of the other relationships he's had." While this does directly contradict what Mickey said before about Eustace being his first friend, it's not like he's exactly the most trustworthy individual, so we can't really put it past him. It's strange that he hadn't attacked anyone else like this and turned them into his pets, as he was apparently so desperate to have a friend that he chose to do it to Eustace despite only knowing him for a day or so. This doesn't make the concept any less creepy, but it's odd to say the least. One final weird fact is that on the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse wiki, there are 18 characters listed under the category of pets. Were all of those also people that got turned into best friends? That may just remain a mystery.